All right, hi guys, my name's Lance Mannins and welcome to this week's show. Super stoked to have you along with us. We've got a great show lined up for you this evening with a superb guest, and we really hope you get a lot out of all of the info to be presented tonight. Behind the scenes, as usual, we've got Keza, my partner in crime with Nzbgf Fishing, and he'll be making sure that everything is working smoothly with the live stream this evening. But before we crack into things, as usual, we're going to have a quick roundup of some notable catches over the last week. And there are quite a few swords to run through, which is really cool. So first up, we've got a solo sword from Jim Troop, 210 kgs, caught on his own vessel canoe. And after 30 years trying, he finally got one. So congratulations to Jim Troop. That is a magnificent solo sword, so congratulations. And next up, we've got Joe Parker, 181.6 kg, and one of the largest striped marlin that we've seen over the last little while. That's a pinfish for Whangaroa on Pollyanna skipper Glenn Cohen. Number 3 tonight, junior angler Nikisha Blakeman, tag and release striped marlin, her first fish, fishing on the launch Immigrant, skipper Trent Blakeman, and as I said, it's the first marlin for Nikisha, so congratulations, that's awesome. And tag and release, which is even better. So number 4 tonight, Dylan Fleischer, 246.8 kg sword out of Tairoa, 5.5 hour fight on the vessel Dopamine, and skipper Geoff Fleischer. Awesome fish. Number 5. Now, I've put this down as the post of the week and one of the catches of the week as well. So congratulations to Min Kim. If you haven't had a chance to have a look at this video, then jump on to the Big Game Fishing page and check it out because it is a very cool video. So first marlin, and he went out and did it solo and he captured it all on film. So congratulations, sir. That is an outstanding effort. So 92.8 kgs on 15 kg as well, which is even more impressive. So well done. And if you get a chance to have a look at that video, I think there's a few things that he'll obviously look to tidy up next time on his next fishing expedition. And last but not least, Nicole Lund, potential world record claim, 176.6 kg sword on 15 kg on the vessel Burley Heads, skipper Hadley Greenhalgh. I think I pronounced that right. And by all accounts, the most popular catch of recent times. So congratulations to Nicole and to the rest of the team that were on board Burley Heads. That is an outstanding catch. And I hope that world record claim gets to go through. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that in due course. So, all right, well, rightio, let's kick on with the show. Just a couple more quick announcements. As usual, we have the Q&A happening this evening. So throughout the show, give us any questions you might have for Geoff. And we're going to be chucking those at him from time to time over the course of the show. And also just want to acknowledge Driveline Finance, who are our sponsors tonight again. They're going to be putting up a $100 prize voucher, which is gives you an opportunity to spend that at the NZ Big Game Fishing shop. So there's heaps of stuff on there, lures and all kinds of things. So jump on there. And for the winner tonight, you'll be able to spend your $100 prize voucher online. Thanks to Driveline Finance. They specialise in motor vehicle leasing and finance, a one-stop shop for all your business motor vehicle finance, plant and equipment needs. So as I said before, to be in to win, simply just get a question into the comments section before 8 o'clock tonight. It's going to be a random draw and you'll be in to win. Just a reminder too, we posted up a little ad for the NZ Big Game Fishing hoodies, which is what I'm wearing tonight. We've also got the Tuna Ikejimi kits, which are going to be arriving soon. I think we've got 5 left out of the first pre-order, which we've got winging their way over. So that's the complete kit to deal with the southern bluefin tuna that you're going to be targeting in the next couple of months. You really need to be looking after those fish, and this is the perfect kit to be dealing with them. So get in quick. If that stock runs out, which I know it is going to, we've got another order kicking in straight after that. So get online, flick a message through to us and pre-order now to make sure that those arrive before you get out and target those amazing fish. Also, just a reminder that we've got the NZ Big Game Fishing shirts available down at North Shore Hunting and Fishing for those of you that are based in Auckland. And if you aren't based in Auckland, then flick us a message or jump onto the NZ Big Game Fishing shop and you'll be able to get access to them. All right, so our guest tonight started off business as a market gardener, believe it or not, a vendor of fine fruits and veggies. He was also a dabbler in local and central politics and, in fact, ran for Parliament on a number of occasions. Moving to the Bay of Islands in the mid-1990s, he carved out a well-deserved high profile in the sports fishing scene. Based in Russell with his vessel Major Tom, he is, of course, Geoff Stone. And welcome to the show, Geoff.
Good morning. Well,
how are you?
Evening. Yeah.
Good evening, Geoff. Really good to see you.
These days, good. Yeah. These days, the time of day is pretty bloody irrelevant to me.
Well, it's really good to have you on board, and it's nice to see you. I haven't caught up with you for a while. I think the last time I saw you, you were probably had one arm on the bar up at the Sortie Club and a beer in the other hand.
Yeah, well, they were good days when I could down a few.
Well, it's good to see you, and welcome to the show. And I know we've got a lot to cover tonight, and I know that the folks that are going to be watching this evening are really going to enjoy it. So you're comfortable there and ready for the next hour.
Yep, dog's watching me, wondering what the shit's going on. You can't work out why the TV's gone off.
Is that your little dog?
Yep. Okay. Yep. Poppy, come here. Poppy, come here. Come here. Come on. There she goes. Star of Scage and Screen. Can you see her?
Yep. Oh, just about. Oh, yes, there she is. Excellent. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Excellent. She says thank you, and she said she was so relieved when we sold the boat.
Excellent. So she never suffered from she never suffered.
Yeah, she did. She did a little bit, but mostly on the really rough days. And she would, in the end, she would go and hide when there was bloody lumps anywhere.
Yeah.
But she put in a good 10 years on the boat.
Nice.
So she's done her thing, and she's done very well on a fish diet.
Excellent. Hey, well, let's crack into it. Yeah. What did you enjoy the fish at all? Were you a fish eater, or you just got over it in the end?
No, tastes like shit. You've seen all those dolphins pee in the ocean. It's not hygienic.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's crack into it. So I found it really interesting when I was talking to you the other day. We talked about how you actually came over to New Zealand. So you weren't born in New Zealand, were you?
No, I'm a Pom. I was born in a place called Goring or Worthing in Sussex in England. Mm-hmm. We were pretty much right on the sea where we were. We're only about half a mile from the sea. But as a kid, I was totally preoccupied with fishing. So part of that. So there was great stories when I was about 3 or 4. I used to go out and sit in the gutter with a piece of string and a bent pin and fish down the grate in the gutter channel. And the logic was that people had goldfish inside and they would empty their goldfish bowls and there'd be mistakes. So there must be goldfish down there. But unfortunately, in those days, nobody told me the difference between a sewage system and a drainage system. So I was fishing in the wrong area, but I'm sure my parents were pleased because it kept me out of their bloody hair for a while.
So was that your first lesson was that your first lesson in patience?
Yeah, that was. I used to amuse the shit out of all the neighbours in the street. They always used to ask me if I caught anything. So now I'm waiting. But my first fish I caught out off of a groin down on the Goring seafront at high tide, and it was a little place which is like a flounder, and it was about you can't get it. It was about that big. About that big. So it's like a so that was it. And then Dad used to put out set lines from the beach, and instead of having a boat, of course there was quite a long big tide, and there was a lot of sea lettuce around in the sea down there, so there was a lot of fish there. But to fish it, I used to put out a set line at low tide, and just plant a board in the sand, string out our hooks, bait them up with lugworms or winkles, whichever was easiest to get, and wait for the incoming tide to come in over the shallows, and then when it went out again, wait out and check the line, and caught out whiting in place and that sort of thing. That was my earliest introduction to fishing.
And how old were you at that stage?
Probably about 5 or 6.
Okay, nice. So how old were you when you came out from England?
6.5 when I arrived in New Zealand.
Right. So when you came out, so that was what, 1950s?
1956.
Right. Okay. So there was a bit of a magic moment when you came out, wasn't there?
Got into a lot of shit. Yeah. being totally fascinated by the sea, I was in this habit of being only 6, climbing up on the rails of the boat and looking over the side, see how much I could see. Scared the shit out of my parents. So that was okay. I felt safe. It was only water down there. It wasn't anything really dangerous. And I found out a wee bit different since, of course. But yeah, there was one night they showed a film of the Lady Doreen. Must be not long after it was first put into service up here. And they were doing a promo for game fishing in New Zealand, and we used to have films on the boat. So we got the first sitting because of immigrant ships. No great shakes in the infrastructure they supplied us, and got sat into 2 sittings. So I watched this film and I was totally captivated by this game fishing on Lady Doreen, and so I watched it. And I said to my, you actually had it up on your show here not so long ago. And so I said to my parents and my family, I'm going to sneak back in and watch that again. I'm going to go to the second showing. So it's all right. And halfway through the program, come on, William Stone, come to the purser's office immediately. Oh, William Stone, I didn't know. There's about 800, 900 people on the boat. I'd never met any other Stones on the boat. William Stone. Sounds like he's in a bit of trouble. So, watching a bit on. William Stone, come to the purser's office immediately. This is urgent. If anybody knows the whereabouts of William Stone, would they send him to the purser's office immediately? Boy, Jesus. So this guy, William Stone, must be in a pile of shit. So it's all right. The thing finished and had to go home, and we were in the boondocks of the boat right down low. And I had to walk back past the purser's office. As I came past the purser's office, I saw my mum in a very agitated state. And she saw me. She Jeffrey, where have you been? You had us so worried. Oh, I'm so pleased to see you. Whack! Gave me a good bloody smack for not being where I was supposed to be. And it all came about because from birth they'd called me Geoff. That was my dad's fishing companion when he was younger. I didn't have a clue who this guy William Stone was. So everybody had always called me Geoff. So that's all right. Got into trouble for that, amongst other things.
So for those that are wondering about that bit of film, so I chucked up a little while ago. It wasn't Fighting Fins, but it was another one about fishing out of the Bay of Islands. So yeah, I think it was set around that kind of 50s. It was early.
Yeah, 1950. I think the film itself came out about 1954, 55, and then found its way onto the newsreel on the boat. And we came out in 1956.
Really cool bit of footage. So that's interesting. So that was your first introduction to game fishing and possibilities up in.
First time I'd seen marlin or any of those big fish.
Yep.
The rest of the time it was inshore fish in England and a bit of coarse fishing in England.
Pike.
No, not pike. There's no pike down where we were. We used to catch a lot of very small eels.
Okay.
Fingerlings.
Yep.
And they would make. It was very different from the later days when we'd go fishing at Lake Coleridge, and instead of catching fingerling eels this size at night time, we'd put out a line for an eel, which weren't hard to catch in Lake Coleridge.
Yep.
And of course, these are the old females that are landlocked in Lake Coleridge, and they would be 5 feet long.
Wow.
Real ginormous bloody things. So we got a friend of ours tried to cook some, and they were just solid jelly. When they boiled it up, it was just solid jelly.
Crazy. So you ended up down in the South Island.
Yeah, Christchurch, St Albans School, Christchurch Boys High School, Canberra University. Yeah, right through all that period of my life, I was much better at bunking and going fishing than I was at studying.
So early days of fishing for you in the South Island, what was that, trout and?
Yeah, a mixture. Did quite a lot of fishing off Littleton Wharf. I wasn't allowed to go fishing with my mates on my own over there until I could swim 100 metres. So it's good incentive. And we used to. I'm looking at the questions. What did I get up to? What did I just say?
So Littleton Wharf, and obviously we did some trout fishing.
Then we used to go all the trout in the Avon River. We used to foul hook those. Highly illegal. Race away from anybody you thought who might be a ranger when they came round.
Yep.
That was an introduction to a bit of trout fishing, and then started doing a bit of fly fishing. Yep. In the Avon River of all places. Caught a few because that was in biking distance. And then Dad and I used to go out and on a Saturday morning and go out to the Cam River, Kaipoi River, perhaps out to the Irwell number 2. But Dad was never a fly fisherman. He was always fishing with bait. Then we got into salmon, fishing for salmon at the mouth of the Waimak and Rangatata. That carried on for years. Then fishing the high country lakes, both thread lines and fly.
Yep.
Then I got a pair of shit again when I was at school. And banned from Dad said there's a car here. The car at weekends, but you if I hear that you're in Christchurch, you're in trouble. So basically, we were under instructions, me and my fishing mates, to get out of town and go fishing, and don't come into town and get into trouble. So that's what we did.
Excellent. And so from school, what did you go straight into business, or were you working in the family business, or what did you get up to?
did strange things. That was in the days when you could go and try things, because there were so many jobs available.
Yeah.
You if you didn't like a boss or you didn't like the conditions, you just left and went somewhere else.
Yep.
So in very short time, I did gardening. I went down the markets to work on the markets. I did night watchman. This was all while I'm going in and out of university. Sold home appliances, sold insurance. That was terrible. That was the worst job I ever had. Worked in the Smith's Nutty Crust Bread Factory in Christchurch and Ferry Road while I was at university.
Yep.
Crown Crystal Glass during the holidays. Worked down there when they were in Hornby. They had a site there. That was good money. Just a whole heap of different things, and then got into a bit of financial strife at university. I didn't have enough money to keep me going, so I mate of mine was working down the markets, and I went down and got a job in the markets, and ended up with a job booking all the rail and that sort of stuff, a clerical job. Then ended up getting a chance to go and do auctioneering. So I started off as a fruit and vegetable auctioneer. That worked out, and then I didn't like the boss very much that I had at Market Gardens Limited in those days. And I decided that I got married by then, had a kid, young Catherine. And so we decided I'd drive to work every day and past this empty shop in Barbados Street, and decided in 1975 to open up our own business. So we opened up a fruit and veggie shop. I think within about 3 years we had 3 shops, and then by the time we left Ashburton, we'd had 5 shops. By the time we left Christchurch, we had 5 shops. So just sold all those up and went down Ashburton chasing Rob Muldoon, trying to get rid of Rob Muldoon.
So it's just the tie up with so you got into local and kind of central government politics and bits and pieces, didn't you?
Yeah, 1980 they opposed to the Christchurch city. They wanted to put motorways right through the centre of Christchurch, and saw what happened in Auckland, where they absolutely destroyed the inner city suburbs in the initial stages of putting the motorways in Auckland. So quite opposed to that. So I got on the council, opposed to the motorways, and ended up as the chairman of town planning at Christchurch City Council after Terry McCombs died. And then in 1984, I got tapped on the shoulder and suggested that I should put my name down to stand against Rob Talbot in Ashburton for the seat there. Basically, because we knew that Basil Arthur was going to retire the Timaru seat at the following election. And the thought was, we'll get a bit of a profile down that end of the country and then have a crack at the Timaru seat. But Basil died a bit early. The Labour Party took over the candidate selection, and they ended up selecting a candidate that couldn't beat the National Party guy that won the seat, Guy Pope. It was. Pope? I can't remember his name. Well, no, they called him the Pope. Can't remember. Anyway.
So you never quite made it into the hallowed halls.
Never quite made it then. And so then we, my son, Jamie, was a chronic asthmatic. He was really, really sick. We used to have him in Christchurch Hospital every month. In intensive care. So we, when we got down to Ashburton, despite living out in the country, he came pretty much right. So we thought, well, bugger this, we might as well stay down here. So we bought a small farm, started growing fruit and vegetables, bought another farm, got on the council in Ashburton, and ended up as the chairman of the finance committee, Ashburton District.
Right.
Farm went really well. Built some commercial property, built a really big fruit shop, and Christchurch and Ashburton. It's still there. Well, it doesn't seem to be as busy these days. I don't think fruit shops are. And did really well. It all became a bit easy. So
I
had a bit of a burnout period when I was in my 40s. So I said, bugger, that's up. I said, well, I want to go fishing up in the Bay of Islands and go and the shit out of Bruce Smith. So
you've been coming up and down fishing with Bruce and a few of the others up there in between times, haven't you? That's
yeah. Well, everybody says to me, why don't you buy a boat? And I said, well, because it's cheaper to bloody charter one than it is to own one. So I was determined not to buy a boat until such stage as I could work it and get at least some return on it.
Yep. So how many years had you been coming up to the Bay of Islands before you actually made the decision to come up?
Oh, about 3.
Right.
And my first wife, she, I didn't care where I lived as long as I was living in the Bay of Islands and I had a chance to go and buy a boat. She came up and they bought a house. They bought under instructions, they bought the worst house in the best street, and did all right out of that. And that was in '94. And then my final hurrah to everything was to stand against Jenny Shipley in '96 for what was by then had become the Reclaimer election.
Yep.
I think I was number 37 on the Labour's list, the first MMP election. We didn't have a chance in shit of beating National Party by the time they changed all the boundaries, but it was good fun running an interference campaign.
So
that's what we
did. Did you interfere successfully? Did you interfere successfully?
No. Labour didn't quite win the election. The idea was to keep. Jenny was their star turn. So the idea was to create this atmosphere of pressure on her in Ashburton, or Clare, so that we took her away from other electorates in the country where she was otherwise campaigning. But National got back in again with the help of Winston Peters.
Okay. And Geoff, can you just adjust your screen just a little bit there, if you could?
I'm bad at that. I'm a fiddler.
Perfect. Oh, that's right.
You don't want to see the dog again, do you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she'll pop up, or he. So catches or memories of those early days with Bruce. What boat were you fishing on in those early days? Was it the first striker or?
Yeah, it was a first. Well, we've been up to fit it, but taking the kids up to Coromandel, because none of us have been to the Coromandel.
Yep.
Took the kids up to Coromandel for a holiday, and we went out for 3 days on Santana with Graham Heron. Interesting, at times a bit of a disaster, but it sort of set the scene a little bit, gave an idea what was going on, and got back to Ashburton, was relaying this to one of the guys in Ashburton who'd just been up fishing on Lady Doreen with Bruce. Right. And they'd caught a fish. I thought, bugger that. So during the year, I contacted Bruce and said, can we make a booking? I want to bring some mates from Ashburton up to go game fishing. So I organised all that with my group. I got a phone call that said, oh, we've solved the Lady Doreen. What do you want to do? The new boat's called Striker. So I said, well, I'm going fishing with the captain. I'm not going fishing with the boat. So yeah, we'll stick with you and we'll go on the striker. So we were one of their first customers on the striker. I think we got the boat into the water probably in late February that year. And we were booked at the beginning of April because in those days it was cheaper to go marlin fishing in April than it was to fish in March and February.
Right.
That's before the stuff started up the Kings.
Yeah.
So we did that. So now that boat is called Wahoo. It was striker. They bought the it was striker, and then it was bought by Shane, who renamed it Pack Attack, and then he sold it to Bernie, not Bonita, who Andy McGoffey.
Yep.
And Andy had a boat called Wahoo previously, so he's changed the striker back to Wahoo.
Right. Cool. Hey, just for the team out there, a quick reminder about our Q&A tonight. So keep those questions rolling in. We will start getting to those shortly. And just once again, a big thanks to the team at Driveline Finance for putting up that $100 prize voucher to spend on the NZ Big Game Fishing website tonight. And yeah, big thanks to Driveline for supporting the show tonight. So so the decision, Geoff, around getting into game fishing and making, that commitment, how did all that come about?
Well, basically just burning out from all the other things we're doing. We were running the fruit shop, running the market gardens, being chairman of the finance committee, Ashburton District Council.
Yep.
Developing shops for other people, and kids are left home. It was, while we're working so hard, capital assets have never meant very much to me anyway. It was the pleasure of creating businesses that was the thing more than the money that came out of them. So that wasn't hard. And then the news got out in Ashburton after the election that we were intending to come up to live in the house that we'd already bought in Russell. And I got a phone call from what's her name? Dudley Smith's wife, Sharon. And she said, I read in the Ashburton Guardian, because they were getting the Ashburton Guardian sent up to them in Russell. My husband's selling his boat, Major Tom, too. You might be interested. So I said, well, we'll arrive up there in about December I think it was about December the 12th or something like that. We'll come and see you. So I went round there, met Dudley when we finally arrived and moved in. Met Dudley, went out on the boat, had a look over the boat. And I always knew in my mind that what I wanted to do was to go broadbilling, because we'd tried it out with Bruce, and I quite like this idea of sitting back and just waiting for a bite. And because Major Tom was never really a stay-away boat with the cabins and that sort of thing. So because of extra emphasis on the deck space for fishing. So we got some alterations done by Don Senior. It was Don Senior built boat, and then we got the alterations done by Don Senior as well, and extended the fly bridge so that we could put me and a deckhand upstairs, leave the crew downstairs, put on all the extra lights, that type of thing for night fishing, and then started off doing what we ended up doing for the next 23 years.
Excellent. So you got the boat refitted out, and you had a pretty exciting first trip, from what I understand.
Well, it was the first trip that we Dudley had agreed to stay on for 3 months because I didn't have a ticket, obviously. So I needed to get sea time. So I employed Dudley and his deckhand to run the boat, So I had the rights to be on board and get my sea time.
Yep.
At the end of March, when that time was up, I got Malcolm Warwick, who used to be Bruce Smith's deckhand,
Yep.
to come and deckhand for me because he had a big ticket. He had a ceiling, a bigger ticket. And he came along as a deckhand. So we decided the first thing we were going to do was to go out and test the boat out for Broadbill. Of course, at that stage, we hadn't done the alterations. We wanted to see what needed to be done. So we went out in conditions where I would never do it now. I never go out in 15 knots and try and drift at night time now. But we did it because we're stupid. And we hooked up on this bloody Broadbill using a car wire as a bait on the drift at night time. And my first wife pulled it in, and it was 260 odd kilos. And we had a lot of fun trying to get that one into the boat. The problem with Major Tom is the deck is a long way off the water. Pretty hard to get a fish into the boat. So we pulled that back to Russell, feeling very proud of ourselves. And that was those days, it was a New Zealand record.
Yep. So I didn't actually get a chance to check the if that's still standing for the New Zealand record, but it's still standing as Bay of Islands club record. So that was 263.
That was 93, I think.
Yep. April 97. No,
97. That'd be right. Yeah,
97.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so how much sword fishing had you done for that, Geoff?
Oh, just on the trips with Bruce.
Yep. Okay.
And then not much because the conditions had to be right. And you got to say that that first striker was a little bit tender when it was beam on. So not the most comfortable of drifts at night time.
So you got the boat refitted, and then you got your hours and everything up, and you got your ticket, and then you're away.
Yep. Then I had a deckhand. Malcolm used to have to come all the way over from Dove's Bay, his little boat, and that got too hard. So then I got Basil Amaroa as my deckhand, and he was a deckie for about 6 years. He was like my mother. So when my first marriage broke up, he was my mother. He looked after me.
Excellent. Was he your minder?
Yeah.
Excellent. And
so he became that's all right because he became best man at the second wedding.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So early memories of fish, and trips. What were the kind of early days like? I mean, there was obviously a bit of a learning experience, I would have thought, getting used to the boat and
So anchoring in the wrong places, anchoring in Tom Bowling Bay in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just about getting in the shit there.
I know all about that.
What we did what Liz and I did to begin with was just went out in the boat and just got familiar with what to do and how to do it. Trying to put out too many lines at once.
Yep.
All the normal mistakes that everybody makes.
Yep.
And of course, in those days, it was really the last of the days of the focus on stay away marlin charters for groups of guys fishing for marlin. So in those days, people didn't go fishing in trailer boats. They thought they had to go fishing in big boats. So we got in just on the last dregs of that era of game fishing, and then it changed over the years. But we thought about that a bit with Major Tom because when we bought it, we knew it had to be a year-round job because nobody was going to employ me, and not if they had any brains anyway. And because the configuration of the boat was ideal for fishing for snapper with a group on board and for kingfish. So we spent a lot of time doing that.
Nice. Hey, might just start chucking a couple of questions at you. We've got one from Mike Harris, so I'm sure that you'll remember. Hey, Geoff, do you remember when you came to my aid off the Cape when I was fighting a 303 kilo black marlin in the dark out of a 16-foot tinny? We would never have got it without your help, buddy. God,
yeah, I know.
How about
and
that?
I could have got myself in a load of shit for that one too. I had a guy called Paul Hayes as my deckhand for that. We had guys out on a snapper trip. We're fishing at the whale.
Yeah.
Mike called up and was relaying the hassles he got from the little boat and not being able to shift out because they were on stand-up. And I said to my guys, do you want to go out and give them a hand? And they were all keen on that. So we went out and did it and gave them a hand. And when we got there, the angler was really, really knackered. So we transferred him without managing to do it all IGFA without touching the line, sat him in the chair. Then because he had a stand-up rod, he's sitting in the chair, we opened up the back of the boat, opened up the gate at the back, and he had the line going down through the gate. And pretty soon on, it was pretty obvious the fish wasn't moving much. He died, so I got him to go right up to sunset. And we spent the next 5 hours, I think it was, gradually getting this fish up, doing the old dead fish stuff, going up to sunset. Easing forward. If the fish had been alive and screaming all over the ocean with him sat in the seat with a stand-up rod, we wouldn't have got it. But because the fish was dead and down deep, we could control the angle and finally got the fish up. So then we finally got the fish to the boat. Guys are saying, let's get in the boat. I said, stuff that. Let's go and find the other anglers. Because what we'd done is we'd put 2 of our anglers into his boat, into Mike's boat, and set them free. And which was 5 hours, mind you. So I called up on Channel 6. Okay, guys, you can come in now. Didn't hear anything.
Wow.
Guys, you can come in now. Didn't hear anything. Oh, shit. Because the wind got up from about 15 knots and it was in a bit of a current line. And, oh, shit. Then all of a sudden they said, yeah, we're awake. So they got the boat. Hey, they came to the side of the boat. And as they threw the line to us to tie up, they ran out of fuel. So that was it. It could have been an absolute disaster. I still go to sleep having nightmares about what might have happened that night.
Yep.
And if those guys are listening, I have to apologise to them for what I put them through in that bloody tiny boat.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry. Carry on, Geoff.
I said the things you do at sea.
Yeah, totally. So one from James Geoff. Do you most enjoy targeting marlin or tuna, and why the choice?
Personally, I would rather catch a tuna.
Right. Okay.
Basically, because I want
for eating,
or yeah, because I don't like fish, but I do like sashimi.
Right. Nice.
But interestingly, what we did the last blue marlin we caught, we chopped it up and put it into slabs because smoking the guy didn't want to smoke a 200 odd kilo fish because of the cost. So we just cut it up in slabs and distributed the slabs. And we were eating up the club. Doug Wilson was the chef up the club in those days, and he was making poke out of the blue marlin. It was delicious.
Totally.
I know blue marlin doesn't smoke so well sometimes, but it's certainly really good as sashimi. The only trouble is when you've got 200 kilos of fish, it's a lot of bloody sashimi.
Totally. So a memory from Derek Gerritsen. I remember the day you came to the Pie-Hair Swordie with a magazine with an article about daytime sword fishing, and the next day you and Jerry went out and got that world record sword. So we're going to cover that off a little bit more shortly, but you know, it just goes to show those memories are thick out there, sir.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It really was a bit novel in those days. Do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll cover that shortly. Just the marlin and bits and pieces in those early days. Like I know that's around that time that you know, like there were quite a few. Like, did you have memories of large black, not black marlin, of striped marlin? Because I know Jim Petherick's 243 was 96, which was in that kind of era.
Yeah, that was a chemist or a chemist.
Yeah, the dentist or chemist. Yeah.
Yeah, and he insisted that he was going to write the article himself and hold Fishing News to ransom, and didn't send it away for anybody to proofread. And when they wrote the article, he stated that Jim had come downstairs and adjusted the drag on the reel, and without that, he would never have caught fish.
Yep.
And of course, that immediately disqualified the fish.
Yeah, totally.
Phil, Chris.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that season for like anything different? Because I mean, I'm looking at this season for some pretty big fish out there, and I'm still expecting something well over 200 to be caught.
Yeah. No, not really. I think a lot of those fish were caught on extended. See, again, you're fishing on extended trips. You're catching probably more marlin then, so there's a better chance of catching a big one in amongst what it was. So I don't know that they're any smaller, but the thing is, the marlin grows so fast. So the marlin we're getting out here, the really big ones, are 4 or 5 years old, if that. So it's not like a broadbill where it takes them 20, 25 years to get up to that size. The marlin are getting up there in a lot less years. So it's, if you take the pressure off, you're going to get big marlin returning much quicker than we'll do big broadbill.
Absolutely. Okay, so just a quick reminder about the Q&A tonight. Just keep those questions rolling in. We've got about 10 minutes before that comp closes off. So we've got the $100 prize voucher from Driveline. So once again, just a big thanks to Driveline Finance for their support tonight. And also just a reminder that we've got the Nzbgf fishing shop, so that $100 prize voucher is to be spent on there. So, all right, well, let's have a talk about sword fishing.
Do you want me to answer a couple of these questions first?
Yeah, well, I'll lead those in. So, well, okay, well, what was your favourite bait for swords, Geoff?
Skipjack tuna.
Okay.
Just because of the rigging system that we developed, worked brilliantly with a skippy.
Yep.
So that was good. It was the old tauranga rig, the hook out of the tail.
Yep.
Tie the eye to the ankle of the tail, let it drop down. So it was head down. That was good. But we caught them on as I said before, Kawai, Jack Max, squid, blue nose, all sorts of things. Yeah. Nice. And then when we're short of bait, when we caught them on half a skipjack because we're trying to make the bait last longer. They're basically bloody garbage gutses of the sea. And they're not very fussy, and then they come up at night time and they'll smack a lure that's going 1.5 knots at night time. So they're not. It's not as if they're fussy eaters. Yeah.
And if you're targeting them via trolling, so I think we've got a nice little graphic of the back of the garden patch where I think that you used to tow lures. So how would you tow for lures, and where would you be towing if you were out that way?
I always baited my lures, and then we had one down about 30 feet on a downrigger, and then one along the surface with a 32-ounce sinker on it, so it didn't pop up. So it kept down reasonably low. And then if the bait was taken, we stopped the boat, put the reel into neutral. The angler sitting there with his thumb on it, ready to just put a bit of tension on. And then as soon as it started to peel out, get the angler to go pick up the rod and go to the chair.
Right.
So that was the problem with that was you still had to be up all night. So while it added a bit more interest in another option to nighttime fishing, it was still a pain in the ass to be away for 5 nights when the guys want to do a couple of nights of broadbill. You're still tired as hell. So we started to spend a bit of our own time on. But we'd heard that the Lytton boys came back from Venezuela. They've been deckhanding in Venezuela, and Hamish and I've forgotten the boy's name in the meantime. They came back and telling us about how these guys were catching broadbill during the daytime by basically dropping down into the half hooker range for our fishing. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I started to try doing that out. Made a heap of mistakes to begin with and ironed things out, thought things through. And then finally got our first broadbill during the daytime up the garden patch. So that was a revelation. And then we just gradually refined our system and made it. And in the end, sometimes we go up there, we go all the way up to the bloody garden patch, put a line in the water, catch a fish and hook up in 20 minutes, play the fish for 5 hours, and then come back and wade in again.
Yeah, crazy.
Dumb airs.
So developing the system, so you pretty much, when you were doing the seminars and bits and pieces on it, you were working with that float system, weren't you?
Yeah, I've done that right to the end. Basically, what we had on the boat was Jerry, in those days was our fisherman, and Heather, my second wife, is a deckhand, and me. And it was a pain. And we used to run 2 lines, not one. We used to run 2 lines. So you're forever winding up from 500 meters. And I'd already been put off half hooker fishing because of that. I always gave the rod to someone else to make sure they pulled out the half hooker. So had a bright spark moment. I've really enjoyed even through the days of fishing in England, fishing in New Zealand, with coarse fishing in New Zealand, fishing for piper, fishing for trout in the Opie River, using floats, using indicator tags when you're nymph fishing. And float fishing had always appealed to me. And then I read that these guys in Venezuela were using floats. So then we had to nut out a system where, because you got all that nylon out there, and braid wasn't acceptable to IGFA under any circumstances in those stages. Because we had all that line out there, you never really saw what was going on. The idea of the float was that the weight was on there, but we needed a way that when the sword came in and attacked the bait, the sinker would fall off. we didn't want to just drop it down and break the sinker off, because then it would just start to float up again, and we're still left with having to check the baits every 3/4 of an hour, every half hour. So we developed a system where we threaded 3 kg line from the hook down through the bait, and then attach that to 15 kg line, put a 2 kg weight or a milk bottle of stones on the end of that. Very careful when we put it in the water that it went down. So he had this 3 kg line running along the surface of the fish and out of the fish's nose before it tied it on. And then if a sword or anything else came in and whacked it, take the pressure off the line, and the floats would pop up.
Right.
So you know that your bait was being interfered with. So then you waited a little while, see what happened. Sometimes the float would be pulled back down again, and other times it'd stay up. You just check the bait. Now, of course, as with swords, are quite often you got them within 200 meters of the boat before you really get any weight on them. So you knew you had a fish on, because it was there was no weight on there at all.
Yep, gotcha. Nice.
So it was much easier. It meant we didn't have to check our lines all the time, so we could sit there in total confidence. I'm just going to have to recharge my laptop. We could sit there in total confidence that we still had a bait on, even though we might have been in the water for 2 hours or so.
Yep, gotcha.
In the later days, we went down to just one reel, because one line time.
And then you'd just be targeting structure, or you'd be targeting bait on the bottom or mid-water, or
a bit of both. So we want structure. Structure attracted the blue nose, or the gemfish, and then the I'm still getting untangled here.
That's right.
The fishermen. Hold a second. I'll go and plug in.
Yep, sure. We'll have a talk to the dog for a little bit.
Oh, she's asleep. She has to be carried on a boat these days. Try to get her to go on a boat. She's most reluctant. She ran up the wharf the other way.
So pretty much you were targeting your known blue nose areas, which you'd fished before.
Well, what happened in the early days? So we were fishing mostly out of Whangaroa, because it was an easy trip. We'd go away for 5 days, come back to Whangaroa at night time, or Matai Bay. Then we're doing all the daytime stuff, and used to get on quite well with Winky, that was running the blue nose boat and Haka boat for the Monganui fish shop. So he'd let us know if he'd had any of his blue nose being swiped by swords on the way up, because they left a mark on the side of the blue nose. That certainly led us quickly to realising that these, like other fish that come down here, they're only here for food. So if you weren't near the food, you weren't going to catch them. And that was a bit of what was happening in Venezuela as well. So guys in Venezuela never, even though they wrote an article on it, Kingfish magazine, the water magazine, they never really discussed their methods and how they did it.
Well, here's a message from Dougie. Poke was good, but there was only so much you can make.
Yeah, poking. Yeah.
Pokey, was it?
Interesting that he's watching. I hope he's feeling okay. He hasn't been very well either, poor bugger.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Doug. And one from Michael Savage, who's who's the new owner of Major Tom. We'd like to thank Geoff for all his help.
Bugger.
Yep,
he's a
totally.
good bugger. Yeah.
And Andrew Johnson, just a quick question. So why do you think less people fish to IGFA rules and less people fish in comps these days compared to the late 80s, 90s, etc.?
Probably just more people are going out in their own small boats. In the 80s and 90s, when people were going out on boats like Major Tom or Lady Doreen, the skippers were very conscious of the IGFA requirements because they wanted the kudos for the fish they were catching. So the skippers tended to enforce the rules.
Yep.
A la the Phil Crisp with the big Marlin. There's such a hoo-ha up here about that happening that made everybody very aware of what was going on. And people want their independence to fish now. And part of the trouble with competitions is there's an expectation that you go out fishing in conditions where you probably shouldn't do. And I think that the trend these days towards putting more emphasis onto kingfish and snapper in those tournaments, making more awards for that, more recognition for that, will assist those competitions in surviving. If you're just out there for just Marlin, and you happen to have a competition that's had 3 quick weekends in 3 successive years, your fishing competition is going to find it really hard to survive.
Absolutely.
And people in small boats, when they catch their first fish or any fish, say, "Oh, bugger, I want to keep it."
Yeah. Well, I think that's why we see such high weighing, keep rates or catch rates. People keeping fish at the beginning of the season, and the tag rates don't start balancing out until later on in the season. I think we've only just hit 62% or something nationally in the last month. Hopefully that keeps creeping up.
The other thing was that in the early days when the moratorium was first agreed to, you got Bill Hall, Smithy, Ken Taylor, all fishing up the Kings for extended periods of time, catching 15 fish in a day. They can't bring 15 fish back or 10 fish back. Tag it, let it go, get on to the next one. Tag it, let it go, get on to the next one. And so that put more emphasis on the tagging again, because the charter boat skippers, they want to build their numbers and qualifications. And a lot of the time it's the charter boat skippers that are interested in the world records and that sort of thing.
Yeah, why tag fish haven't necessarily received higher points in competitions. You do see it from time to time now. It kind of beggars belief. There's got to be more priority on that, I believe.
Yeah, Mike Harris has just come back again. I was going to say to him that I remember that, but it wasn't Merv Brown that put him on there. It was Chris Britton.
All right. So Mike has just come back and remembers a time. So it was Chris Britton put me on Major Tom at sea to give you a hand with a sword on light line. Your wife had been playing for many hours. We got the fish shortly thereafter. So what was the story behind that, Geoff?
We're trying to break the record on 15. So we're out there and we went for a drift out by we're drifting way out by the ammunition dumping ground. We didn't have a charter on board. It's me and my wife and Jerry. And nothing was happening. And then we got surrounded by bloody orcas. Stuff this. I knew what happened if we hooked up a sword and the orcas around, we'd just lose the sword. So we steamed into the 9-pin trench. Nighttime, steaming at nighttime, as you know, can be pretty exciting and nerve-wracking. We got in there and we would put out a bait at about, I think we got the bait in the water about 3:30. And about 4 o'clock, it must have been closer to 6 o'clock in the morning, the line went off and Heather picked up the rod, sat in the seat, started fishing, and she had sciatica, really bad sciatica. So she wasn't very happy about having to pick up the rod anyway. And about by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 15 kg with a sword, we were pretty scratching our heads a bit on how to make progress, because we knew it was a sword because we saw it jump out of the water about 7 o'clock in the morning. And so I said, well, I really need a deckhand over here. So Chris dropped Mike off, and it's all right. He goes a hand, and finally the fish floated up. Must have been about 7 o'clock at night, something like that. She played it for 14 hours with sciatic nerve problems. She did so well. When we got it in, friggin' hell, the fish was only tiny fish. It was only about 65 kilos, 66 kilos, but was hooked in the dorsal fin. Poor girl had been playing this bloody fish for 14 hours, trying to pull it in from the side, Broadbill in from the side on 15 kg line. No wonder she had trouble.
Excellent.
We got it in. Yeah. Well, lizard's fish, the very first one we caught, that was hooked in the pectoral fin.
Right.
And it's just because they're such clumsy feeders. The same when you're fishing those lures at night time, those fish get tangled as much as they get hooked in the mouth.
So how were you setting up those lures? Were you like running like a Lumo lure or a with a bait inside?
Not too much Lumo, but a little bit of Lumo. We got some made in America. So half Lumo. Lumo lures were too bright.
Right.
So just so they glowed a little bit like a squid, because the squid doesn't come into full glow unless it's got a threat or something. So we just did that, and then I used to use the belly out of a skipjack and tie that in, so that when they came in and smacked the lure, if they didn't foul hook themselves or they didn't get hooked up straight away, that's why we stopped the boat. And then the fish could come back, and he knew from the taste, he knew there was something in there to eat. In the end, because we had so many really long fights on Broadbill, with hooking them in the mouth, we're not really hurting them. That's why we ended up using the 16-bar mustard offsets, and doing the rig and the tail. The idea was to get the sword to swallow it down, so the 16-bar could hook in its gill rakers, and we could deal to the fish within an hour rather than within 15 hours.
So you weren't using J's at all? You're just using those offset circles?
No, using offset J's.
Oh, offset J's. Sorry, gotcha. Okay.
16-bar. Big bastards. Like that. Like that.
Yep, I've got them downstairs. Yep.
Just the thing. Catching a gill raker, game over.
Yep. Gotcha.
The only thing you have to watch out for is the bleeding and attracting sharks.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay. So you'd run one on a weighted one under the surface, and then one on a downrigger, what, like 20 or 30 feet down?
Yep. I let out about 45 meters.
Yep.
So by the time you get the angle on, you're down at about 30 meters.
Yeah. And then you'd run a drop back or just tight on the rod tip?
The one on the surface I ran a drop back for.
Yep.
The one on the downrigger, you've automatically got a drop back with the downrigger. But that was the idea of getting the guys to back off the drag. The one on the surface was all right because it was pegged for the drop back. But the one that was on the downrigger had to keep some weight on that. So the guy would have to just back that off and keep the thumb on there until we get the second bite.
Cool. Okay.
We're really waiting for the second bite rather than the first one.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So, percentage-wise, like, were you mainly doing swords, or were you kind of 50-50 on the swords and doing marlin trips, or kind of where did your kind of main charters kind of split out?
It was a business. We did whatever the customers wanted.
Right. Gotcha.
So, and it depended how I felt at the time. To begin with, all I wanted to do was the swords, and I was looking out for customers to go and take sword fishing.
Yep.
You got to say towards the end, I had, and there's a question on there. What did I like to fish for? Well, it's varied. In the end, I'd much rather go out and catch kingfish than marlin. So that was the fishing in the end. Was kingfish, but yeah, have fun out doing the swords. But again, the swords was sort of a bit of an intellectual challenge. Nobody had done it. Nobody was doing it. It was a new fishery. There was an opportunity to extend our season beyond April because we could catch swords right through to August. So it's an intellectual challenge in some ways to extend the season and make it extend the game fishing season that we were going through. So that was good. And but after a while, it's a bit like running the fruit shops I had. After a while, once you've achieved it, you've done it. Then you're looking for the next thing. So the next thing we went on to was catching kingfish on light tackle. Right. So we spent hours trying to catch kingfish on 2 and 3 kg line.
Yep. And so how did you see the swordfish or the sword fishery change over those years?
Well, just more and more people were out there doing it. And I think suddenly we realised just how many swords there are in our waters. I think probably there's more broadbill out there than there are marlin. And we only really scratch the surface of the swords. Even the commercial guys, they're only fishing the top 100 meters. We're fishing down to 500-600 meters, but over a very short distance in close proximity to structure. So it's pretty hit and miss on fishing for the swords, and yet we still catch them.
Yep. Did you explore outside of those traditional areas much?
Yeah, then we started, once we had a fair bit of time up the garden patch, we tried the Paringaringa canyons and never did much good. Then we came down, did the 505 and the gut there, and the lump on the other side, the 379 there, it shows it. There's a rock there that holds a lot of blue nose or other fish, and the swords congregate around there. And then right down into the seamount off of the Cavallis here. At the back of the clay works. And in the end, we were fishing there quite a lot, basically because it was such an easy trip in and out from the that map's not quite got it on. It was such an easy trip in and out of Whangaroa. Here we go. Seaward limit of territorial sea.
Yep.
No.
So those guts and bits and pieces.
Yeah, and then we started to put a bit of time and effort into the 9-pin trench. We caught quite a few fish out of the 9-pin trench, but it's a bit shallower. So you're not quite getting your line down that. For some reason, I got hooked on 500 meters, and that was it.
Yep.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So there were some pretty significant catches for you. There were Jerry Garrett. Sorry. So let's talk about Jerry for a while, because he ended up being quite a regular client for you, and obviously we had a world record, 369 kgs on 37.
Yeah, that was a 14-hour flight. Yeah, you can see how tall and muscular everybody is in that. You can imagine the trouble we had getting that fish on the boat. We had to. What we did was pull the front end of the fish in as much as we could, secured it, and then went very slowly at about 8 knots to 7 or 8 knots into Monganui. We've got some guys on board, gives a hand to pull it on board. So then we, after that, we put a block and tackle in, and made life a little bit easier. But, yeah, it was quite difficult.
So which area did you get that out of? Was that out of the garden patch, was it?
That was out of the garden patch, yeah.
Right.
That was on the what we called the tongue on the inside, the top end of the tongue of the garden patch. So down there, it's to the southwest of that circle. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so that was daytime or nighttime?
That was daytime.
Ah, okay. All right.
And that was before we did our breakaway sinkers.
Right.
So the fish actually took it 300 meters, not 500. It took the bait on the way down.
Right.
And it's quite interesting when that happens, because when you're letting it down without the breakaway sinker on, you still needed the 32 ounces, but you had to let it down, make sure the sinker didn't get ahead of the fish. So we let it down quite slowly. So basically fishing any time from 200 meters down. I actually pulling the lines up. I've actually caught them about 20 meters off the surface.
Wow.
Pulling the line up, and the sword takes 20 meters from the top.
Wow. And it's just followed it all the way up.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting that we tend to think of doing the getting the line up and getting it back down again, but we're actually fishing in that, coming right through a fishing zone. Wow. They're not necessarily all right down the bottom.
Yep. So you would see them. It's like when you're up in those areas, you'd be targeting structure, obviously, but then you'd be looking at those scatter layers.
Mainly we were targeting structures, because the sounders we had in those days weren't as good as they are now.
So you'd basically just be setting up a drift.
Yeah, it was setting up. I could see the structure on the bottom, and you'd know that there was blue nose or that sort of stuff in that area. So that's what attracted us to those areas.
Yeah.
These days I'd have a different sounder on, which would actually show me the swordfish, and that would make life a lot easier. In those days, it really didn't have that.
And in those days, you were using what, light sticks, or did you have those long line lights in those days?
A bit of both. Started off with light sticks, then went to light sticks and flashes.
Yep.
And in the end, I tended to use both the light stick and the flasher.
Right.
Sometimes you use just the flasher.
Yep.
I made the mistake once of tying the flasher onto the downrigger weight instead of onto the line.
Yep.
And we got our downrigger totally messed up by a sword or something coming in and attacking the downrigger. Grabbed the bloody weight, broke the downrigger, broke the line. Absolute shambles.
Yeah.
I never made that mistake again.
So that Fisher Jerry's, when it hooked up, did it head straight north, or what did it do? Did it do that north kind of thing that they did, or?
I'm trying to think. Not really. No.
What did it do? Did it come to the surface straight away, or?
That fish took us out towards the 505.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the striped marlin tend to hang north. I never noticed that with the swordfish.
Right. Okay.
It might have been the way we were playing them. We learned very well close on that it's best not to try and back down on a swordfish unless you have to get some line back.
Why did you find that, Geoff?
Because you take the pressure off the fish.
Right.
You take the pressure off those guys and they say, "Oh, thank you very much," and they'll go back to having a feed and doing what they want to do. But we tended to put as much drag as the angler could stand on, because basically you're fishing with 37. There's not many people can fish for any period of time with more than 20 kgs of drag on. So it's still only half the line weight. As long as your line's and your knot's all right, you're not going to break it. So the idea was to be up to about 20 kgs of drag, which meant going past the button. To do that, you need to put a mark on your reel to find out where that point is. And then if the angler's having a bit of a rest, then you just nudge the boat forward, a bit like playing with big tuna. So you just nudge the boat forward and put the pressure on the fish by nudging the boat forward.
Nice.
I remember saying to someone who will remain nameless after they hooked up, and they'd been backing up on a fish for about 5 hours. I think it's about time you put some weight on that fish.
Excellent. Good on you. So, so the 4 Old Man of the Sea awards, was that 2 for Jerry? And
yeah, 2 for Jerry, one for his adopted son.
Yep.
And one for Liz, my wife, for that first Broadbill.
So they're all swords. Awesome.
All swords, yeah.
Wow, congratulations! That's amazing.
I still think that I think that Mike's angler should have got one for that 303 kilo black.
Yeah, totally. That was a story.
Should have got one for that. That's a great story. Having changing boats in midstream, that was really cool.
So with your marlin fishing, what was your favourite lure or lures for stripies and bits and pieces? Did you have anything, or you just chucked anything out the back?
Bonzi. When I first started in '96, Bonzi was still at school.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he was making lures at school with a soft head on it. It's made out of cycle grips, on your handlebar grips.
Yeah.
And they were a fruit salad skirt. I don't remember which brand it was. Fruit salad skirt. Yeah.
Was it kind of like that? Yep.
And he also made me a little green lure, a little tiny one. Oh, come this way. A little one about that big. We towed that in short. It was a weighted lure, had a weighted head on it. And they were my 2 favourite lures. And we caught our first New Zealand record on that. It was an underage, the first Marlin record. 14-year-old boy. Yep, got back of the 9-pin trench. I'm down on in those days, you got 9-pin trench and you couldn't have the VHF to talk to each other because it didn't work. So I was talking to Hamish on the single sideband, and he'd hooked up on a blue the day before and hadn't done any good. So I said, "There's not much happening." He said, "Yes, there is. It's happening on your boat. If you head out." And the line was screaming out, and there's a bloody fish jumping all over the ocean. And the father was about to grab hold of the rod. So I bloody jumped and grabbed hold of the father and threw him to one side. And said, "Don't you touch that bloody rod." Got the boy to pick up the rod, went to the chair and pulled in. I think it was about 290 kilos. A 14-year-old boy. So that was on that fruit salad, the bonsai fruit salad.
Nice.
With the soft.
So it was kind of a neoprene soft head kind of style, was it?
Yeah.
Yep. And I think you ended up with quite a few bronze whaler records as well.
Yeah, well, they bought. We'd spent a bit of time up in Whangaroa Harbour, as you probably gathered, fishing around the place. And when it was really rough, we'd just chuck out a bait out the back and try and catch a bronzy. And then they made bronzies a IGFA fish, and they hadn't been before that. The whaler sharks hadn't been, or requiem sharks hadn't been part of IGFA. So we have we been going 9:25 p.m. That can't be right.
No, 8:25. So we're going for nearly an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm going to say it can't be right. So when they brought out the that out, we decided we'd target a few bronzies. So we got Heather a world record on 15. That was right outside Kingfish Lodge. Created some interest. We broke one off after 10 hours on 10 kg. And this was basically fishing on days when we couldn't get out after Swords or Marlin, Kingfish outside the harbour. So that was all right. We caught that, and then we caught a one for Jerry's grandson, that's a New Zealand record, and then world record and New Zealand record on 15. And then we caught Rolf Masvin over in by the Black Rocks. We got one over there that was 245 kilos on 8 kg line. Yeah. That was interesting. Rolf we got one the week before, and Rolf had said, and it was about I think it was 10 kgs off the world record, about 205 kilos or something like that. And Rolf had said to me, "You catch me the world record, and you got a $4,000 bonus." Oh yeah, we can do that. So I did that. Went out and got it. And James Taylor, Ken Taylor's son, was the deckhand. So he pulled on that trace so bloody hard. Just as I got the gaff in to the fish, the wire trace broke. So that was lucky that we got that fish.
Totally.
Then we had to go through and swear all the affidavits in front of a justice of the peace to say that we hadn't free gaffed it. That there was actually
that was gaffed while in hand.
Yeah. Otherwise it wouldn't have counted. And I got my money.
Excellent. You got your $4,000.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, let's grab a few more questions. One from Brendan. Hi, Geoff. Where do swords go when they migrate, if they do migrate? I think we've got a migrating population and a resident population.
Yeah. What they've seen is that they to breed, they tend to go up into the tropics. So they don't. Right. It's the same. Off Florida, they get a lot of small fish. Down in the Florida region, they get the bigger ones up north. So, and in the Mediterranean, they only catch mostly small fish.
Yep.
So they go into warmer waters to breed. There was some tracking done on satellite tags.
Yep.
That showed them basically spending most of their time at 700 to 500 meters. And then coming up, they suspect that they come up and breed on the surface. And that way the ova can scatter all over the place and have more chance of spreading out and surviving.
Yeah. One from Andrew Davis. What do you think is a sword's favourite food?
I would say whatever the schoolfish are in the area. As I said before, they're not fussy eaters. They just like to eat. When you're 700, when you're in 700 meters of water and it's really dark, I would think that your food's quite hard to find. And they got that slashing action where they probably don't identify fish really close when they come in. They know they're in the vicinity, so slashing their sword means they know if they've damaged one and they can come back and get up.
Yeah, cool.
So,
yep.
If you're in amongst gemfish, if you can find a small gemfish, that's great.
Yep.
You find a small blue nose, that's great. Got a skippy, they'll eat a skippy anytime because of the oil. Jack Macs, those big Jack Macs, sometimes you get really big Jack Macs in Whangaroa Harbour. They make excellent broadbill baits, especially for fishing with smaller hooks like a 16 burrow circle. That really sets up well for those guys.
Cool. Just a quick announcement. Sounds like we've only got a couple of these tuna kits left out of the first shipment. So better get in quick. It sounds like the crews that are heading down to Waihau and bits and pieces are snapping these up. So we've got a couple left in the first shipment. So if you want one of these pre-tuna season, then get in quick. Or get on the list for the second shipment, which we'll be ordering in the next couple of days. So yeah, if you want to be looking after your tuna this season and you want to do it properly, then this is the kit you need. So get online and check them out and message us with your details. Cool.
Mike Canola's got structure, food, swords.
The best combination.
I would say that the structure attracts the smaller food and that attracts the swords. I don't think the swords are necessarily attracted to the structure, they're attracted to the food. So if you've got a free-ranging school of fish out in the ocean, and they're not near swords, it would still be worth a drop down beside them, even though you're not close to structure.
But if you're seeing a lot of bait, like 100 meters off the bottom type thing, then dropping into that is the way to go as well, isn't it?
Yeah. They're after food. They're not sightseeing. So most fish are only interested in food and sex. They're a bit like us.
Yeah. Message from Hamish. So many great memories, Geoff.
Yeah, he's a good bugger. Hamish and I got on so well over the years. But, yeah. Now the Spot X boaties on is doing well on that.
Yep, absolutely. And a message from Paul at Ocean SST Maps. Thoughts on swords basking on the surface? That's a good question.
Yeah, we've done that a couple of times. It's very, very common over in California. That's when they first started sword fishing. It was in California, and they got those where the guys go out and actually harpoon them while they're on the surface. And they started off. That's where Julie caught 9 in California doing that. But they're very reluctant to eat when they're up on the surface like that. And over in California and down in Chile, where they were catching all the really big ones in the 1950s, you got that Humboldt current coming up, really cold current coming up down deep. So that attracts a lot of bait and a lot of food. But of course, the broadbills down there, because it's in really cold water, it will want to come up to the surface and bask and warm up. So that's why they're probably not as interested in food when they're up there. But that's part of the reason why the rules, the IGFA rules, are so strict on deliberately foul hooking a fish, because what the guys would do would be pull on their biggest hook they've got and then just trail it across the broadbill and foul hook it, rather than trying to entice it onto a bait. So that's their. I've tried to bait. We've successfully baited one on the surface of the two that I saw the time I was out there, but it didn't stick. It dropped off. That was when Malcolm Warwick was with me on the, and that was out past the 9-pin trench.
Yep. So one thing we didn't or haven't touched on quickly is that you did put your or put Major Tom into survey for Three Kings or Extreme Limits. So how much time did you spend up there? Did you just basically do the general kingy missions and bits and pieces up there, or what was your main kind of target up there?
If I was staying up there, I was mostly interested in fishing the King Bank.
Yep.
Major Tom was not ideally suited for going up into that country. So, but the important thing was to have the survey, so that if we're up fishing around North Cape and the weather is really good, we could shoot across there and not get into trouble. So, or not be in trouble with the with Maritime New Zealand. So that's what we did. But I can't say operating on a boat like Major Tom, I wasn't really that. In the end, I wasn't particularly enthused about fishing the Three Kings.
Yeah,
had some good times up there fishing kingies and that sort of thing around the islands. Some great times, and actually broadbilled on the tail end of the King Bank and doing that sort of thing when the current wasn't too strong. But you're pretty exposed up there when you're in a boat that's got a wide beam, but hasn't got much draft and not much keel. It's and it came up. Hamish was actually he's obviously listening to this. Hamish was on the boat up there, and we when I went through a tide line a little bit fast, and we managed to get the whole of airborne going over a way, which shook things up a wee bit.
Excellent.
I wasn't very comfortable.
And I mean, obviously it helps too, because if you're strictly to stay within the 12-mile limits, it means that you're quite limited in terms of operating range.
It meant that we could do things like take a trip out to the ammunition dumping ground and that sort of thing, the Night's Rise.
80-mile ground.
I never went out the 60-mile ground, never took it out that far.
Sorry,
but see, then you fish the outside of the garden patch, and that's outside the 12-mile zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the 9-pin trench, it's questionable where the boats without a extended survey should be out that far.
Yeah, it's just outside even from Cavalli's.
Yeah.
Well, at certain parts of it. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, because I would never have done that. I would never have gone outside my limited area.
Of course you wouldn't.
No, like you, I just too law abiding.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, one from Shane Dixon. Well done, Geoff. You gave my daughters Stephanie and Bridget some excellent tips on going for light line records.
Oh, I remember. Shane bought the first striker, and he was the one that called it Pack Attack. Yeah, remember Shane well when it had motels in Kirikiri.
Yep.
Yeah, good girls. Those girls, they're good fishermen.
Be fisherwoman these days, Geoff. If we were going to be truly PC.
Fisher people, anglers.
Anglers, correct.
We have non-sexist word like anglers, so we might as well use that.
Well, you did run for the Labor Party, so we need to be strictly PC.
I see somebody asked me before whether I was Labor or National. I think we've answered that.
A message from Chris himself, Chris Britton. Great to listen to you, Geoff. Always interesting to obviously be engaged in a conversation with you.
Yeah, good.
Nice.
And Chris will know that we're having a memorial service for Ashley Hankinson on May the 1st at the Swordfish Club in Russell and other places. There's a fisherman that fished with me, fished with Chris, and fished with Hamish a lot, who passed away in South Africa not so long ago, age of 52.
Oh wow!
Not right, is it?
No.
So I'm doing my best to join him at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that you've been of ill health, Geoff.
Oh, that's what it is, and I was lucky that I made the decision. Paul and I talked it over about a year. Paul Henry, my deckhand for the last 10, 12 years, about exit strategies. So I've been going over to Thailand for winters for about 4, 5, 6 years. And I said, I think time has come to sell the boat. So Paul said, yeah, I've just about had a fill of it too. So I put the boat on the market, and the boat sold in 2019. And before I could get advantage of having my first winter in Thailand without having to worry about a boat on a mooring in Russell, we got COVID. So couldn't go. And then they decided after I had a bit of a term, I couldn't do anything, that I had a blood cancer they couldn't cure. So they just tied me up to a few machines and give me blood every fortnight. And so carry on. So now I've just left looking at TV screens.
Well, you obviously like a weed and you won't go away, Geoff.
I am. Very lucky. Well, there's a lesson in life in all of it. That if I hadn't have come up here when I decided I needed a change, hadn't come up here in '96, it would have been too late for everything. Hadn't started going to Thailand, I would never have had that life experience.
Absolutely.
If you get a chance at a life experience, grab it with both hands, because it's going to give you bloody good memories later on in life. And once you get to my age, and the way I'm restricted, to be able to look back on those memories is precious.
You're not sitting there with regrets. I'm not
sitting there thinking, what if? I'm thinking, I wish I could do it again.
Good on you.
Then I think, no, I don't. That was expensive and dirty.
Old Doug Wilson's just come back and said, F off, Geoff, you'll be here for ages, mate.
Yeah, well, like him.
Exactly. He won't go away. He's like a bloody weed too.
Well, he's still working, the bugger.
I know.
Good on him.
Exactly.
Good on him.
Yeah, got a lot of time for Doug.
And he just had COVID as well.
Okay.
He just recovered from COVID, Doug, so he's done really well.
Okay, nice. So we do have a voucher winner, which we're going to announce shortly. But just a couple of things, just to kind of start wrapping us up. We're kind of almost heading for 2 hours, which I think is probably getting towards the end. Strangest things.
What's
Sorry,
my
Geoff?
favourite part of the country to fish?
Oh, okay. What is your favourite part of the country to fish, Geoff?
Bay of Islands.
There we go.
Yeah. That was part of the reason for making sure we came to the Bay of Islands. Just the thing about the Bay of Islands, I'd done all my salmon fishing. I'd done all my trout fishing. I'd go out fishing up in the Bay of Islands. There are so many options you can go and fish for. And Mike Barnum will be pleased to note that we actually still have pink mau around here.
Only just.
Just.
The way I've seen them filled up with bloody chili bins and taken out of there, for fuck's sake.
I've got to admit to being guilty to that in the early stages of when they started doing it. I actually had an argument on board the boat with the guys, and they said they wanted to keep on fishing. I said, no, you've got 20 fish. Yeah. You read the rules. So I phoned up Russell Radio. I called up Russell Radio and said, can you get on the fisheries website and tell me what the rules are about catching pink now? There was no restriction on it.
Exactly.
So I was in a bit of a. So in the end, what we did was, if the guys wanted to go catch pink mau, once we thought they had enough, we would quietly drift off the spot, and they stop, and you wouldn't catch anymore. Yeah, bugger that.
We used to get offered stupid money from a certain retailer down in Auckland to take clients out to the hole in the rock and catch them. I just refused. Just not ethical at all. Now, all right. So, strangest things at sea is something so I think you've come across a submarine at sea, haven't you?
Yeah, came across a Canadian submarine scootling down the coast. Couldn't believe my eyes. It was it wasn't submerged or anything. It was on the surface where you could see it. So we went as close as we could, and we waved to the guys on board, and they waved back, and everybody was happy. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, that's three skippers I've interviewed that have seen submarines at sea now. So what else can you think of?
And then the times that I've seen pirate ships.
Oh yeah.
At anchor, after fishing for 36 hours straight, heading back down to Whangaroa.
Yep.
And Paul Hayes, my deckie at the time, came up and said, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I'm just avoiding it was daytime. I'm just avoiding all these ships old ships that are anchored here, all the sailing ships. It looked like I was in a ship's graveyard. I was hallucinating. So rather than run the risk that one of them might actually be a real boat, I was dodging in between them to make sure I didn't see them." And another time we were playing a broadbill off of North Cape. It's one that took us 20 hours. And so tired at night time, the backing up. All of a sudden, I was backing up to the hole in the rock. Oops, can't do that. That's dangerous. So I had to keep nudging forward, which I did most of the time I was fishing for swords anyway. Had to start nudging forward to get the boat away from the hole in the rock. We were 15 miles off of North Cape. I knew where we were, but in the middle of the hallucination, I didn't know what else was there. So the only thing I could do.
Yeah.
Coming out of fog, we had up in the same area, really foggy day, and I could hear the blast from the beep, 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 beep. What the hell are you doing type thing from the big ship. Couldn't see a thing. Looked up at the radar, and the radar was just full. Couldn't make out anything on the radar. It was full. We'd crept up close to a bloody ship, and this ocean-going ship, just at the back of the boat. It was that close, about 25 meters off the back of the boat. We were that close to being run down by an ocean liner.
Wow.
That was scary ship.
I think you had another interesting incident with a bit of coastal traffic while you were hooked up.
Oh, that was really cool. So we were hooked up on a sword. Sitting in the seat, and I'm looking back, and I could see coming towards us. I could see 2 white lights and a red and a green light, which was not good news because it meant it's heading straight for us. So I raced up, got on channel 16, and this is Major Tom 2, charter fishing vessel, fishing off the Cape Carry Peninsula, about 15 miles out to sea. We're hooked up on a Broadbill, and we're limited in our ability to manoeuvre. Could you please go to port? I said, yeah, go channel 6, please. So I went to channel 6. I said, you got me? He says, yeah. Congratulations, Geoff. You've hooked up on another one. There was a guy I was sat beside in the when I was doing my engineering for my CLM.
Awesome.
So here he was skippering the coastal freighter.
Excellent. That's brilliant.
So he said, I can go to port for you, Geoff.
Excellent.
There we go. We got the fish.
Excellent. All right. Any other fish to remember?
Best one. People always ask me what I got asked the question, what's the best fish you ever caught? And I would tell them, I actually wrote an article for Fishing News on it. My mum's caught my mum and Marlin on her 85th birthday.
Wow.
It's her first Marlin, only Marlin. Caught her on a live bait. She thought she was going snapper fishing. It was maize, so I thought we'd try and catch her a Marco or something easy to make her 85th. Yeah, nice.
That's brilliant.
And it was my birthday, 9th of May. It was Mother's Day, 9th of May. So we took her out fishing, put a live bait out, went on the downrigger with wire trace because we thought that's where we'd get the Marco. Caught a second bait, so we put that out on a nylon trace on the surface, and hooked up on something. Got Mum sitting in the chair already because she could never pick the rod up, and we had both rods beside the chair. Got her to pick the rod up, and gave her 2 kgs of drag, and said, "Right, start winding." So for 2 hours, she sat there just winding.
Wow.
Happy as Larry, just winding. And after about 1.5 hours, Ken Taylor came in on alibi, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We've got a Marlin on. Got my mum in the chair." He went, "Oh shit!" And then the fish decided that it was going to start greyhounding, and it came up and did 22 leaps, which thankfully tired it out, and we got the fish alongside. And I think it was 120 or 129 kilos or something for this 85-year-old girl. And my walking, I've got the walking stick in the car, but I've got a photograph. There's my mum's walking stick. It was the same day that the guys from Bluefix caught that world record on 10. And that fish was already on the deck.
Yep.
Over in Russell, over in Pie here. Then we hung our one up. It was 129. And my mum's standing. There's a photograph of it beside the ladies' toilet of the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club. And my mum's standing there with her fish, and she's got her walking stick draped over the petrol.
Brilliant.
The lesson in that is that not that marlin are hard to catch. It's just that if you're patient and you adjust your gear, you can catch anything you like.
Wonderful. What a great story. That's brilliant. Hey, I'm going to chuck a couple of last questions at you. What was your favourite bay to anchor in?
Whangaroa.
When you're on it? Whangaroa. Okay. All right.
If you go up Whangaroa, if you go up the eastern arm, right at the top end of the eastern arm, there's shows on the map as a 2 metre shallow patch. If you put your anchor on that, it's sand, clean sand. So your anchor never gets dirty, and if the wind blows up and it pulls through the sand, you come to the mud and you don't go any further anyway.
Very good.
Best anchorage in the country. Now everybody knows about it.
Okay. One from Sam Corbin. Favourite kingy spot in Bay of Islands or Whangaroa and Whangaroa?
2 or 3. Depending on what's going. Whangaroa, Kingfish Point, first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. Get some live baits. And on your way out marlin fishing, just drop a couple of baits over the side. And I would say that 50% of the time, at least at 7 o'clock in the morning, you'll catch yourself a kingfish there. And at the Cavallies, both the western end, through the rocks around there, good fishing. And then the other spot we caught a lot of fish up there, especially we're doing the 2 and 3 kg, was around the Teapot, just back towards Whangaroa from the Teapot, where the channel is on the northern side of the channel that runs up beside the Teapot. There's a rock there that holds a lot of fish. And then I like to fish around Wairuri, but it can get a bit crowded around there at times. But Wairuri, yeah.
Did you ever see any black marlin around there?
Yeah. Well, that's where Brucey caught his one. It was the first big one. Not the big one they put on TV. It's the whole rock.
Yeah.
And guys fishing Kawai around Wairuri, hooking up. That was the first place I hooked up on a Marco shark. It was as a client with Bruce. We had had Kawai out fishing for a kingy. It was in the days before blue coho got used extensively, and we hooked up on a Marco there. So.
One from me. What was your hours count on Major Tom before you sold it? Can you remember?
How many hours? You mean how many motors, don't you?
Well, in total, do you know what your total was over its life? How many engines did you go through?
It was on the 3rd and 4th motors when I bought it.
Yep.
And then I think in the 24 years, I might have put 2 motors on each side as well. They basically had a brand new motor when I bought it. Both of them were. And then we did an extra 2 motors on each side.
Wow.
And it was getting, I really can't remember the hours. I never noticed. Never took much notice. I didn't take notice of the hours. I just took notice of the checkbook.
I thought you didn't worry about the money.
I don't worry about how much I've got in assets, but I worry that the assets I've got are making money.
Excellent. Good on you.
So it's like the house I bought. I bought a house that's got a granny flat on it. Mm-hmm. So I live in the granny flat and rent the rest of the house out.
Right. Gotcha.
So it's an asset that generates income.
Excellent.
And if you have assets that generate income, you don't need to be as greedy.
True.
If you go out and buy yourself a $200,000 car, you've then got to go and bloody get $200,000 off someone else to make it a worthwhile purchase. So it's easier to have a $5,000 car. Then you don't have to worry.
Fair enough. One last question. Any idea what your sword count is? Can you remember?
No.
No, lots.
I wouldn't know. Well, I've thought about that before. And it might be 40, something like that.
Okay, cool. All right.
I've never. It's like photographs. I've never kept photographs. I've never taken great stock of totals or that sort of thing. So it just doesn't interest me that much.
Yeah. Hey, well, look, we've really appreciated you being on tonight, Geoff. It's really been a pleasure. It's been nice to see you after I haven't caught up with you personally for a few years.
I don't get up the club much these days. I grizzled to Geoff, the president.
Yeah.
I found it hard to sit in the stalls up on the Sortie Club, of course. I have to have. That's why I'm sitting here, because I got support for my neck. So they went out and bought a stool with a back on it. God bless them.
So you are getting up there every once in a while?
Yeah, then they called me up and said, we bought you a stool with a back on it. I got this about 4 o'clock. Bought you a stool with a back on it so you can come up the club tonight. I said I'd do that, but I've already got an appointment with Lance Manning, so I'll see you next week.
Excellent. Well, we really have appreciated it. Just a couple of announcements before we sign off. So competition winner tonight, Kelly McConnell, and the question was, what's your favourite part of the country to fish? And that was, Geoff?
Bay of Islands.
Excellent. So you're going to end up with a $100 gift shop, well, not gift shop, what am I talking about? Shop voucher from Nzbgf Fishing. So you'll be able to jump online and spend $100. So nzbgfishing.co.nz. Big thanks to Driveline Finance, specialists in leasing and finance and motor vehicles, plant and equipment. Driveline.co.nz. Check them out if you need any help in that arena. Right, so also just a reminder, we're going to be back with you next week. I'm away hunting down the Kaimanawas, so I need to catch up with you guys next week, and next week we actually have Bruce Smith. So he's going to be, so I've been looking forward to that one as well. So he's going to be with us next week, and looking forward to that. What else do we need to cover? All right. Once again, big thanks to Driveline Finance. Reminder of the Nzbgf Fishing Shop. Right, so also just a reminder, if you want your Tuna Ikejimi kits, which are going to be arriving soon, we've got a couple of those left, or get on the list for the second round to be ordered shortly. So message us via the website or via the message function on Nzbgf Fishing group page, and we'll put you on the list. So get in contact on that. And I think that's about all tonight. So Geoff, you take care. Hope to see you again soon. And yeah, been a real pleasure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too.
Awesome. So I'm going to sign off the show. Just stick with us for a little bit longer. I just want to have a quick catch up with you after this. And thanks to everyone that's joined us tonight. It's really been enjoyable. So we'll catch up with you next week. Take care.